Hello, everyone. Welcome again to the Chronic Yet Undefeated podcast. My name is Kaylin, and I'm going to be your host, discovering topics in the chronic illness world. I hope that this podcast will be uplifting, encouraging, and a good source of perspective for those that struggle with illness. This podcast is also for caregivers, healthcare providers, and for all the curious listeners out there. Hopefully, it'll be a bit more energy-filled today as I'm finally getting my energy back after a long weekend. For some of us, it might be a no-brainer to explain our medical condition to someone we meet or begin spending more time around. For others, it's a matter of keeping our medical condition hidden at all costs. Personally, I think stigma plays a huge part in whether some of us share or not because we may fear rejection. Past experiences of rejection from disclosing medical information would probably make some individuals far less likely to share with others. Personally, I have epilepsy, and there's a ton of stigma that comes with that. There's some that believe seizures are contagious even today, and that isn't accurate. There are others that believe it must be the result of demonic possession, which isn't true, by the way. Some have attempted to shield me from flashing lights, and while I appreciate their concern, only a small percentage, around 3%, suffer from photosensitive epilepsy. I'm not among that small percentage. That's not to say that some lights don't feel bothersome to me. Some of them definitely do these days, but flashing lights won't trigger immediate seizures in my case. There's a lot of challenges that come with each medical diagnosis. If you feel comfortable doing so, put common stigmas about your medical condition or conditions in the comments. I know there are many of them out there, and surely I haven't heard them all yet. I'll look forward to reading any responses on that. Continuing on, for many years of my life, I chose to keep my seizures as secretive as possible. It wasn't something I wanted to tell anyone because of how others would react. At first I thought, well, okay, maybe I can share. When people had seen television shows, movies, etc. with inaccurate depictions of seizures, or even media that has made it a humorous thing, they begin to create their own ideas on what seizures are all about. I don't feel epilepsy patients are fairly represented in the entertainment industry most of the time. Sometimes people will make inaccurate comments based on television shows or movies they've seen and apply it to you. When some people around me began treating my condition as a shameful thing, the more I wanted to hide it. I began hating it anytime someone else would talk to me about my condition. In fact, it's something that still gets under my skin a little, even as an adult, but I'm working on it. Sometimes I'd be coming out of a seizure and begin remembering the ridiculous things I had done during the day, but was too afraid to tell anyone about it because I felt like I'd done so many stupid things during the day within my lack of judgment. When it comes to dealing with those that are or may be chronically around you, keep in mind that how you react can often affect their willingness to share with you. If you were to spout jokes about disabilities or somehow make others feel like less, you probably wouldn't know if you had a friend with an invisible illness because they'd fear being made fun of or rejected. In life, I've learned some hefty downsides of sharing versus not sharing. It honestly feels like being pinned against a wall by a boulder and you have to choose if you're going to sacrifice a hand or foot. It's never easy for me to make this decision, but there are times I realize I should have been more transparent and other times where perhaps I should have been more secretive, even if that wasn't truly the solution to the situation. There was a time when I got a job and I always aimed to do my best. It was nice when I was getting the hang of things. I didn't want to tell anyone about my epilepsy. I kept it hidden for a time and I did it well. No one would have guessed. I did wear a medical alert bracelet, but I don't believe anyone knew what it was for. When I earned more money, I bought myself a newer medical bracelet that was easier to read in case of an emergency. However, someone would have to take it off my wrist to read it, so I knew it would be perfect to have at work. Within that first week of work, I was pleased to see that there was an epilepsy training through the Epilepsy Foundation. It made me personally feel a bit safer at my workplace. I thought, wow, if everyone is trained on how to respond to a seizure, then I may be in good hands if I did have an off day. It was the longest training we had to do, and frankly, my coworkers and I had such limited time to complete the required virtual training as we had to do so while we were on the clock. Some were stressed about finishing this one in one sitting, and I understood their concern. But what I heard the next shocked me. As I was writing a few notes down, one coworker says, "Hey, did you get that seizure training done yet?" to another coworker. They talked back and forth about it a bit while I continued to take notes. Then when I heard It's such a stupid training. Why do we even have to do it in the first place? When are we ever going to have to deal with a seizure? My heart sank. Clearly, they didn't realize I had epilepsy, but I was dead set on not telling them now, since it seemed that my condition is clearly part of the problem. At that time, there were big renovations taking place in the work building in one of the large rooms. Walking into this room had a weird sense of humidity, and the musky smell was terrible. There was no mistaking it. That was downright moldy. Even getting close to that room, I could still smell how horrible it was in there. A few years prior, I had some harsh dealings with mold and was probably still healing from that exposure too. If I walked in or near that room, my arms would turn red, my face would become red, I'd be itchy some of the time, but otherwise I'd feel so run down and fatigued. I don't believe I was the only one. There were random cases around the workplace of redness on the skin, itchiness, random eye irritation, headaches, and I don't think that it was a good idea to have that door open all day like they did, but they probably were trying to air it out and get the materials in and out, so they had to. Not only that, but I had an allergy to a quick and convenient food, which also didn't help my energy levels. The bathrooms for staff were attached to the break room, and while I didn't touch the table after a point because I knew a lot of people ate this food, that didn't stop me from getting itchy or fatigued if I ended up touching a door handle at the wrong time. Still, I kept my struggles as hidden as possible. That was until I was afraid I was going to lose my job. I cried and grieved. What if I could no longer do this job anymore? Then what? About a month into this job, I reached out to HR about my medical issues and any accommodations I might need. While my medical absences were excused, it didn't mean that I wasn't forced to burn through all of my PTO as well as my unpaid time off days. I signed multiple forms in which I had to allow them to do this because they said it was policy, as they phrased it, and it truly made me believe I didn't have any choice. There was one coworker that told me that they had negative days off after their illness, and I didn't know what on earth that meant or how it worked, or maybe even they were joking. I hoped it was a joke, but I was about to find out maybe. My health only continued to decline. I could really feel it at the end of the day after I clocked out and sat on the couch in the break room. I'd realize, and I wasn't fighting myself as much to stay as functional as possible. One day my arm started jerking. I wasn't sure if anyone ever saw that, but no one said anything. Another day I was nearly sure I fell asleep on the couch and had a seizure before I woke up, and no one was around at work. They had all gone home and I was waiting for my ride. I became increasingly afraid that I would have a seizure at work. The doors would be all locked and my husband wouldn't be able to reach me. I beat myself up every day I stayed home and had to rest because I wasn't getting sleep at night. The seizures at night were definitely happening more constantly. Being in a moldy environment unknowingly for a period of time a few years before this job created an increase in my seizures at that time too. I figured my body was being aggravated by mold and allergies. This eventually reached a point one day I was on the verge of having a seizure and not feeling well, which made a scene around my coworkers. It was a horrible day, and I made sure it was my last at that job. The next morning, I went back only to turn in my things. I was so embarrassed about the day before, I didn't know how I'd face my coworkers. Most of them thought I was telling lies about my illness anyway. My husband was constantly worried about my health in that environment. I was originally so sad that it would come to that, but by the time I quit, I was angry enough with all the work drama. After quitting, I came home and slept. I slept so good. It took me about a week, though, before the nocturnal epilepsy started showing improvement. Within 2 weeks, I felt a whole lot better. I had a lot of time to reflect. I did grieve that job for the next year. There was a lot I missed about it. I also wondered if I should have been more transparent with my coworkers. I don't think this would have increased any care they may have felt for me, but perhaps there wouldn't have been such gossip and disbelief when I'd be sick one day and back the next. Even though I would assure them I wasn't contagious, there were a few that doubted me, that thought I was flaking out on them, and we were short-staffed as it was. There was a joke made by a superior that mentioned I had a desire to be invisible. That hurt more than anything else. The way others were skeptical of me or didn't believe me made me feel that being transparent may not have mattered at all. At the same time, it could have mattered some, but now I'll never know. I feel like it's important that we all try and not remain 100% hidden. This is coming from someone that was set on hiding my condition at all costs for over 20 years. It has its perks until it doesn't. Sometimes it'd be better if someone knew in the case of an emergency, or if I suddenly started acting out of character one day, someone would have an answer as to why instead of becoming angry and frustrated with me. Honestly, I'm still learning how to put this concept into action. So if you're still trying to break out of your shell a bit, let's do it together. Ultimately, though, the choice is up to you whether to tell others about your medical condition or not, and we all make our own personal choice within that. I'm here to encourage the benefits of holding it in versus being a bit more transparent. There are times in my life when someone spoke out about their seizures around me, or I had a chance to correct a false fact they stated, and I was too afraid that I'd reveal my own medical condition in doing so. Keeping my epilepsy to myself has kept me from sharing with others, as well as encouraging and uplifting others around me. There was one evening when I was at church, and it was a worship night. After a few songs, I was praying in my mind, "Dear Lord, I know I'm being called to share my testimony with the world, but how do I get from right here in my chair to up there? Where does that bridge cross? How do I get from one side to the other? From here to where you're calling me to?" A couple pastors set up some mics at the front and mentioned that there would be a testimony sharing. Part of me kind of laughed at how God works. I didn't realize they'd be sharing testimonies that night, but a prayer was answered. A verse popped into my mind, Matthew chapter 10, verses 19 to 20, which says, "But when they do arrest you, do not worry about what to say or how to say it. At that time you will be given what to say, for it will not be you speaking, but the Spirit of your Father speaking through you." While I wasn't being arrested as the apostles were expected to face at some point, I focused heavily on the "do not worry about what you will say, for it will be given to you what to say." I recited it a few times in my mind. Then doubt sunk in, and I was saying in my mind, "Nah, you can sit where you're at and listen to the testimonies. It'll be okay." Then I heard a louder, booming voice say, "I will give you what to say." I wasn't about to ignore God. I stood up and then was indecisive which path I should take to get to the front. I'll go down the middle. Wait, maybe not. Maybe along the side in the dark, out of limelight, till I had to be in the front of everyone. I was battling my emotions and God's command while standing on my own 2 feet. I had to do it regardless of how I felt. It was scary, as I was rather accustomed to old habits of isolating myself and hiding myself in the shadows, away from the possibility of rejection. Standing in front of people felt like it took forever. I was behind a line of people, but at least I could form a basis of what I wanted to say. Each person got about a 3-minute time limit, and if given the chance, I could probably ramble a good 20-30 minutes. I made it to the front, and I don't even remember exactly what I said, but when I turned around and took my seat, I watched as some other people with chronic illness made their way to the front. I thought, did that open a door for others to speak? Perhaps it did. Perhaps it did help someone to feel like they weren't alone. God always has a purpose for the things he does. It wasn't my place to question it in that moment. And with closing thoughts, I also want to bring up Isaiah 41:10, which reminds us, "So do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand." God is always there, and through him I am strong. He has helped me in many times throughout my life and continues to do so. He definitely upholds me with his righteous hand because I couldn't do it myself. All the credit goes to God. So remember, there's times when there's power in what we do share, and it can help us along the way or help someone else. It's something to consider when we're thinking about sharing our chronic illness with others. We never know how it may pan out sometimes, but there are moments where it will be totally worth it. If you enjoyed today's podcast, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next one. If you found something here that spoke to you today, hit the like button. I enjoyed being able to share with you all today, and I hope that with each podcast, I can continue to bring comfort and awareness to the chronic illness community. Again, you're not alone, and focus on the positive moments this week, as minute as they may feel at times. Thank you, and see you next time.